Thailand, the second largest Buddhist population in the world, with over 75% of followings in this religion. It is believed that Buddhism has come to this geographical location from as early as 250 BC. Its teachings now have been completely intertwined with the Thai culture. Before the establishment of schools, the temple was the only place that could provide knowledge. It was the sacred place for those who wished for education to gather. Although schools now have been separated from monastic spaces as the role of education became more important, teachings of Buddhism and its way of living remains taught within the boundaries of the temple. To live as a monk is to devote oneself into the learnings of life, undistracted by materialistic entities. As depicted in this temple moral, one must let go of all possessions in order to embark on this journey towards enlightenment. Ordaining and committing to this lifestyle means to let go of all relationships, money, clothing, even hair, to avoid the thought of outer beauty, and dive into the inner minds. Possessions is reduced to mere 8 objects: the water bottle, 4 robes, a needle, razor, and the alms bowl. Included within the 8 instructions a monk must follow: food eaten must only be received. This is done through morning rounds with the alms bowl around the surrounding community. Food received relies purely through the faith and devotion of the neighboring residents. Today, temple schools provide both a lodging space and education of free charge, the cost only being that you must hold your virtue in the teachings. Those with children but with no financial means to send their children to school often send their kids to local temples, though this is an option only limited to males, as nearly all Buddhist practices in Thailand are specific to male monks.
The 4th of June at Eton. On this great day, the college presents itself to its own world as its own world likes best to think of it, as the preserve of the English ruling class and the source of most of their virtues. Its world is reminded that on these playing fields, the Battle of Waterloo was won by an unflappable upper crust, which has never ceased since then to maintain a rich supply of top people from the same mould. The bishops, the ambassadors, the generals, the Tory cabinets, the landed gentry, and other blessings. They live in Chamber, all that's left of an enormous room where for centuries all 70 collegers lived and were locked up for the night to their own devices. These included bullying as a fine art, and up to about 100 years ago, catching rats to eke out the sparse and dreadful college food.
A place that foster and educate. The roles of a temple school can be seen in parallel to that of a boarding school, where life and knowledge is intertwined within the confines of the gathering. These schools often have influences of a monastic or religious background.
At 10 minutes to 10, chapel. Compulsory chapel. Anglican, of course, and officially regarded at Eton, as at practically all the public schools, as the central fact in the school's life. But it's not too central to be examined by the Chronicle. Nostalgic remembrances of college chapel on a warm summer's evening, the Chronicle says, are neither here nor there. They may be valid emotional experiences, but they do not necessarily have anything to do with religion. What they are in fact commending is school spirit.
In the midst of the pandemic today, education has been moved to the virtual, obstructing the community spirits with walls and distances. On the interfaces commonly used today like Zoom and Google Teams, conversations are merged into one, and chit-chats no longer exist. Though sharing the same screen and curriculum, a sense of community has been lost. architecture of the monastery also contributes to the letting go of connections to the world, as it is laid out in 3 different sections. Sangha, often seen as the green space of public markets. This is the leftover space from the more practical usage of the monasteries. Puttawad, the semi-public sector and forefront of the monastery, where ceremonies with the public occur. When visiting the temple, most of us would have only visited this section of the monastery. Lastly, Sankawad, the inner private sector of the monastery, that is tucked away behind the grandeur of all other buildings, kept as the residential area for monks, as well as for ceremonies and studyings that are only limited to those living in the monasteries. As perfectly depicted by the library of the monastery, Hotrai, the knowledge provided in a temple is one in isolation. Through the belief of this association to all others but themselves, this education that is open to all with no prejudice becomes one in remoteness, through its way of lifestyle and domestication. With this, learning in remoteness will go forward in speculating the importance of domestic spaces to the role of fostering an education, using temple schools as an example to learn the importance, difficulties, and hence the benefits of isolation.